Welcome to the third series on nail theory, nail anatomy and physiology by True Nails London. In the previous video, we went over quite a difficult and heavy topic of bones and muscular system. In today's video, we'll be going over skin types and skin structures. Hopefully this will be slightly something you're more familiar to. There may be some words you still need to get a grasp of, but it shouldn't be anything too challenging, especially like the chapter before. So let's actually get started. Okay, so we'll go through different skin types. So the first being dry skin. So dry skin has a matte, uneven texture. This is because there is not enough sebum to lubricate the surface cells. Highlight that here. And keep them compacted together. In the absence of greasy coating, natural moisture becomes lost from the upper layers. Surface cells then curl up and flake. The skin lacks suppleness and often feels tight. Dry skin is usually thin and fine with no visible pores. Now, some of the causes of dry skin: hormonal imbalance, incorrect skincare, central heating and air conditioning, extreme temperatures, overexposure to sunlight, prolonged illness, crash dieting, smoking, excess alcohol, and even some medications. The next type is sensitive skin. So most healthy skins are actually quite sensitive, but this term is more for hypersensitive skin. So things that react even to the most mildest stimulus. The reaction could cause the skin to flush, a lot of redness, and it can lead to patches or even a clearly defined network of dilated capillaries. If skin has been neglected over several years, then those dilated capillaries can actually become permanent and more pronounced when the blood supply is stimulated. Dry skin is actually more likely to be sensitive. The next skin type is dehydrated skin. So that means that the skin is actually lacking in moisture. The skin looks dull and parched and may feel tight and itchy. Dry skin is dehydrated, but any skin type may suffer temporary dehydration if not properly protected or cared for. You then have mature skin. So mature skin is when it's lost its firmness and suppleness of youth. It's lined and crepey, which means basically wrinkly looking, and it's lost some of the underlying muscle tones. So skin normally ages very gradually and is described as mature once the changes brought about by aging have become more established. Okay, so the skin itself. The skin is the largest organ of the body and provides the body with a waterproof protection on the inside. Let's look at this simple diagram of the skin and underneath. So along the bottom here we have tissue. We then have the veins and the arteries. We have the sensory nerve for pressure, which is a bit lower, and you have the sensory nerve for touch, which is much higher and closer to the skin. Then have the hair follicle, which is where the hair starts, sebaceous gland, sweat pores, which are here to near the surface, and the epidermis and dermis. So epidermis is the top layer, dermis is the bottom layer, and the subcutaneous layer. So each of these things we will go through below and later into the video. So it might be worth pausing this video, taking a picture for a diagram, and just label as you can see it. So skin has many functions. We're put into a small acronym called HASPS. So almost like wasps, but it's with a H. So there we go. So the first function of the skin is heat regulation. So the body likes to remain at 37 degrees. If the body becomes too hot, you sweat. If the body becomes too cold, you shiver. The second function is absorption. So the skin does not have great abilities to absorb some chemicals and drugs, but can absorb a small amount through its pores. It absorbs UV rays. which then converts this into vitamin D, which is much needed for maintenance of bones. It also has sensations, so nerves are present within the skin, as you've seen in the diagram before, and act as receptors which carry messages to the brain. So you can feel hot, cold, pressure, and pain. The other function is protection. So if you know your science, the neutral scale in terms of acid on one side and alkali on the other side. So being neutral is a level 7. Your skin actually has a mass acid mantle with a pH of 5.5, which means it's not neutral. So therefore it forms a protection for the underlying tissues from bacteria, infection, and injury. Its other function and last function is secretion. So sebum is secreted from the sebaceous glands and gives your skin that natural oily substance which helps lubricate the skin. Also perspiration, which is sweat, is excreted. So let's just highlight sebum, and it's through the sebaceous gland, keeping the skin naturally oily. And you've got perspiration, which is excreted through the sulphurous glands, and it helps eliminate waste from the body and helps the body cool down. So eliminate waste and helps the body cool down. We then have layers of epidermis. So we'll go through what the epidermis is later, but that's just skin levels, and there are 5 main layers. So a little pronunciation test here. So we've got the stratum, so it's stra and then term, the stratum corneum. This is the top layer of the skin. The cells are flattened and only contain 15 to 20% of water and overlap each other to the thickness of approximately 15 layers. So thickness of 15 layers, and that's the stratum corneum. So corn and then e. You then have the stratum lucidum, so as in lucid and dumb. It's only present on the palms and hands and sole of feet. So it's in your palms and it's on the sole of your feet, so the bottom parts, which no one really sees. Then you have the stratum granulosum. So stratum, then granulosum. So keratinization, which we'll come on to what that means, takes place in this layer, meaning the cells are flattened and die. We then have the stratum spinosum. So stratum spinosum. So Langerhans cells, which form the body's immune system, are present in this layer. This is a bit of a tough one. So the stratum germinativum. So germinativum. And this cell division takes place, the cell divisions actually take place in this layer, and the melanocytes that produce melanin are found here. So the way to remember these epidermis layers, but the corneas, lucids, granules, spins, germs. So corneum, lucidum, granulosum, spinosum, germinativum. Okay, dermis. So we're going to go through epidermis, dermis. So we went through the 5 layers of the epidermis. We're going to go through the dermis now. This is the thick layer of the skin. So the thicker layer of the skin acts to support the epidermis and contain all structures of the skin. So that's its purpose. You all need to know that. The dermis is a thick layer of the skin, and its key function is to provide support, strength, and elasticity. The dermis has a superficial papillary layer and a deep reticular layer. The superficial papillary layer is made up of adipose connective tissues, and is connected to the underside of the epidermis by cone-shaped projections called dermal papillae. So it's papillae. So let's read that again. So the superficial, so there's 2 points. So the dermis, which is this thick layer, has a superficial papillary layer and a deep reticular layer. This first layer, so the superficial papillary layer, is made up of adipose connective tissues and is connected to the underside of the epidermis. It's connected to the underside by cone-shaped projections called dermal papillae, which contain nerve endings and a network of blood and lymphatic capillaries, which we'll cover in the next video. The skin as a barrier. So if harmful organisms or chemicals penetrate the dermis, they get transported around the body by blood, leading to widespread problems. If adequate moisture levels are not maintained within the living layers of the skin, the cells can shrivel and die. The epidermis is structured to provide the barrier which keeps out the bad and keeps in the good. So the epidermis being the top layer. Subcutaneous layer, so subcutaneous layer, lies beneath the dermis. So you've got the epidermis, the dermis, then the subcutaneous layer, forming the fatty layer of the skin. Cells called lipocytes produce lipids, which are fat cells from the subcutaneous tissue, which the subcutaneous tissue is formed. This layer cushions muscles, bones, and internal organisms against the shocks and blows, and also acts to insulate source of energy when required. Okay, so we mentioned this word keratinization, and we're just gonna define it here. It basically just means, okay, so firstly, keratin is a tough fibrous protein. So we mentioned this before in previous videos. It's basically just protein found in the epidermis, in the hair and nails. Obviously, we know that the nails is the hardest form of keratin, and keratin in the skin is constantly being shed. So now the word keratinization. Keratinization just refers to the process where cells undergo a change from being living cells with a nucleus to a dead horny cell, or if you don't like that word, then a keratinized cell without a nucleus. Cells which have undergone keratinization are therefore dead. So basically, in essence, it's a living cell going to a dead cell. It takes place in the granular layer of the epidermis, and this layer links living cells of the epidermis to the dead cells above. Okay, so mitosis. Mitosis is the reproduction of cells in the germinative layer of the epidermis. In this layer, so mitosis is the reproduction of cells in the germinative in epidermis, and this layer is the new epidermal cells are constantly being reproduced. These cells last approximately 6 weeks from the reproduction before being discarded into the horny layer, or the keratinized layer. So it's in for 6 weeks and are constantly being reproduced. Desquamation, so it's desquamation. So the cells in the epidermis are packed more loosely in the upper layers. This is to prepare them from shedding. So desquamation basically means preparation of shedding, which occurs continuously and helps to remove debris and microorganisms which might otherwise settle on the skin and cause infections. Next, we have melanin. So melanin is the dark pigment which produces a suntan or shade to your skin. It protects the deeper layers of the skin by absorbing UV rays, so that's important. So cells that actually form the pigment are called melanocytes. They are spider-shaped like cells with long irregular arms which reach out from the cell body. The arms of the melanocyte link it with approximately 10 of the surrounding cells. Melanocytes inject pigment granules, melanosomes, into the neighboring cells, spreading the pigment across the skin. They do make up to 1% of all skin cells. So skins on the hand. Starting from the top, the skin has 3 main layers. So the epidermis is the outer protective covering of the body. These cells at the base, the cells at the base of this layer are living. They gradually move up to the surface and die, i.e. keratinization. Then you have the dermis, which is the deeper fibrous supportive layer, which is made up of different fiber proteins. And this layer contains blood vessels, nerves, hair, follicles, sebaceous and sweat glands, as shown in the diagram. You then have the bottom lower layer, which is the subcutaneous adipose layer, which stores fat and protects your organs. The uppermost layer is called epidermis, called the stratum corneum. So as we went through in the epidermis, which is the top layer of your skin, it's broken down to 5 layers, which we went through earlier. So this stratum corneum is made up of dead cells containing protein keratin. The sole role of this stratum corneum is to protect the deeper living layers. It's thickest on the palms of the hand, where extra protection is needed against friction. Let's highlight all of that. Okay, so I think it's pretty straightforward compared to the previous topic. In the next video, we'll be going over the lymphatic system. So let's see what that all looks like here. So we've covered structure of the nail, bones and muscular systems, and today's video, we covered skin types and skin structure. So I hope you found this video informative and helpful. I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Please comment, subscribe, and like, and thank you for watching.